Hi guys, sorry it's been over a year now since I last posted. I have been procrastinating a lot and school has been really catching up to me. I've been doing worse, so I'm really sorry that I haven't been able to post. But seeing as the other two are old, they're going to be taking the other two series are old and they weren't done very well. I'm going to be taking them down and I'm going to start this one. What if Naruto was secretly a girl and prodigy? I don't know why I am making this one a thing. It's just something that's been stuck in my head the past 3 or 4 weeks. And seeing as I can't get it out of my system, I was thinking maybe I could just make it into a video. So, anyway, this is going to be the first part of What If Naruto Was Secretly a Girl and Prodigy. Hope you like it. I'm sorry if you don't. But anyway, let's get into it. We start back when Naruto was born. Instead of being born a boy, she was born a girl named Naruto. Naruto is pretty much the same as Naruto, aside from being a girl and keeping it a secret. Growing up, she didn't have any friends, and she tried to avoid coming into contact with the adults because they would beat her, and more often than not, would try to do a lot worse. But Anbu would step in before anything bad happened. After 4 or 5 years of being constantly targeted and nearly raped nearly 20 different times, she decided, I'm gonna stop this, and she decided to change her name and start acting more like a boy and start being more like a guy. She started to sorry, there's something stuck in my throat. She started to hang around with Kiba a bit before they went to the academy. She started to play pranks and stuff. She did this all in the hopes of convincing everyone she was a boy and they would stop trying to hurt her as much. It worked for a time until she was 11. When she was 11, a year before her graduation exam, she was struck with a sudden eerie feeling. None of her classmates really cared about her, and she didn't have any real friends. She just kind of mucked around with Kiba and Shikamaru and them, skipped class as a way to convince others that she was a boy and that they didn't have anything to worry about, that she was dumb. She was not. She knew very well that the teachers in the academy were sabotaging her chances at becoming a ninja, and she knew the reason why she couldn't use the clone jutsu, despite it being mandatory, was she just had too much chakra. She had so much chakra and so little control over it that she physically couldn't do the clone jutsu. So, one day, without anyone knowing, she went to the Hokage's office and asked Hiruzen, "Hey, Gramps, I'm sorry for bothering you, but can you teach me the shadow clone jutsu? I can't use the normal clone jutsu." Hiruzen, being pretty taken aback, said, "Why do you need it? It's not like you can't ever learn to use the clone jutsu." And Naruto said, "No, I'm unable to use the clone jutsu because I have too much chakra. I can use the transformation jutsu and the substitution jutsu because they use just a little bit more, but the standard clone jutsu I can't use." Hiruzen, understanding and knowing that that was a requirement for graduation, said that he would try to find someone that knew the shadow clone jutsu and could teach her, as he didn't have the time and he didn't think that a lot of the Jonin and Chunin would want to. So Naruto begrudgingly said, okay, if you do find someone, send them to my house, my apartment, and tell them to knock on the door 3 times in a row. And then when the Hokage nodded his head and said, okay, I will do that, Naruto shunshined out of the Hokage's office, leaving Hiruzen there stunned that he knew how to do that. Naruto, after years of pretending to be a boy, eventually ended up staying with the whole I am Naruto and started using it even when no one was around. So when she got back to her house, she took off the jacket, that oversized baggy orange jacket that she loved so much, and took it off, and that's when you could really see that, yeah, she was a girl. The baggy clothes that Naruto is always seen wearing is another way to hide that she's a girl, since she has fairly large breasts for being 11, 12 years old. After about 4 days of still going to the academy and pretending that she's a boy, 3 knocks on her door came, and she immediately knew that it was someone that the Hokage sent. Naruto went up to the door and opened it to see a silver-haired man wearing a mask and with his Hittite over his eye. He introduced himself as Kakashi Hatake and said that he would be the one teaching him how to use the multi-shadow clone jutsu. Naruto asked what the difference was between the normal shadow clone jutsu and the multi-shadow clone jutsu was, and Kakashi simply said the multi-shadow clone jutsu lets you make much more clones than the standard one. Naruto, being interested, went with the tall Jonin and went to Training Ground 6. Being at Training Ground 6 in this deep wooded forest area, Kakashi ended up showing her the hand sign to use the Shadow Clone Jutsu, and explained that she needed to divide her chakra up amongst all her clones. Naruto, giving it a shot, didn't do perfect at first, but after 4 or 5 hours of training, she was able to get down the Shadow Clone Jutsu, making 10 or 11 clones at a time. Unbeknownst to Kakashi, Naruto could actually make many, many more, but she was hiding it because she didn't want anyone to know. She also, over this 4-hour training period, noticed that her clones that were further away and were doing their own thing before she dispelled them, she would get their memories. Naruto, seeing this as a perfect opportunity for training, ended up going to her house and using the shadow clones to help her clean around her apartment and get rid of a lot of the wear and tear that was there. Time skip, it's a year later, she's about to take the graduation exam, and everyone is mocking her, saying Naruto isn't going to be able to do it because he still can't even use a normal clone technique. Naruto, not caring and frankly not even wanting to show them what she can do, went into the testing room and performed all of the jutsu necessary right back to back. And instead of the standard clone jutsu, she used the shadow clone jutsu to make 4 clones. Iruka, noticing that they were shadow clones and not normal clones, was very impressed and handed her her headband right then and there. Mizuki, who had hoped to trick Naruto into stealing the Scroll of Seals, was livid and didn't want her to be able to use a B-rank ninjutsu with very little difficulty. So he decided to try and trick her anyway but instead of not passing her the way that was done in canon, he decided to go about it in a different way. Mizuki made a couple of clones himself, being standard clones, and brought them with him to Naruto, who was sitting on a swing set, happily swinging, unlike in canon where he was depressed, happily swinging, being super happy that she had finally gotten her headband and was confirmed to be a real ninja now. Naruto, who was very happy, was swinging up and down, and that's when Mizuki came up to her and asked her if she wanted to have a little bit of an extra test. Naruto, not knowing what he was talking about, but thinking it was just something like that could get her extra points, said sure, just to explain it to her. Mizuki said that all of the konoichi that passed this year that could possibly pass the Genin exam, the graduation exam, whatever, were going to be allowed to go and grab a bit of extra credit, and it would help them get onto whatever team they wanted to be on, and it would also let them learn a special jutsu. Naruto, who was very interested at this, listened in very intently, and Mizuki said, well, considering all of the konoichi are here, he brought out his 4 clones that were all transformed to look like different konoichi. They were all background characters. They weren't anyone important. Naruto was like, okay, what is this test? Mizuki explained that they would need to go steal one of these scrolls from the Hokage vault, called the Scroll of Seals, hoping that she didn't know what it was, and that he would meet her in the forest outside of the inside the walls, but outside of most people's area. She decided to say, you know what, screw it, I know he's lying, but if I can find some jutsu in that scroll, hopefully they'll help. So Naruto said, okay, where is it? Mizuki gave her directions. Naruto, just like in canon, being very stealthy for a blonde kid with neon orange clothing, stole the Scroll of Seals, put it on her back, and ran off into the woods with these 4 clones behind her. She knew they weren't real. They were all just the typical clone jutsu with a transformation on them. So Naruto didn't see fit to care. She made it to the clearing that was just like in canon and opened the Scroll of Seals, and immediately seen the multi-shadow clone jutsu that she was already familiar with using for over a year. Her being like super happy to have this and that it was on the Scroll of Seals, wondered why Kakashi would willingly teach her it, but figured, maybe it was the only one he knew. After about 5 minutes of looking over the scroll, she decided to make 6 clones, all of which had their own scrolls. Naruto took 10 scrolls with her in her shinobi pouch, hoping to hopefully write down a couple of the jutsu on this ancient Scroll of Seals. The 6 she found were 2 wind release jutsu that I'm going to come up with later, the Flying Thunder God Jutsu, which is, Minato's ability to teleport, the Rasengan, which was also put on it by Minato, and 2 other elementless genjutsu and taijutsu techniques that I'm going to come up with again later. She had the 6 clones write down these techniques on these scrolls, rolled back up the scroll of sealings, and ran back to the Hokage's office. Her not wanting a bunch of Chunin and Jonin to attack her, waited for them to disperse as the Hokage was talking to them. And that's when she noticed Mizuki running towards where they planned to meet up. Naruto, knowing that Mizuki was a traitor, ended up creating 100 shadow clones and jumped him from behind without him knowing. Him taking a face-first dive into the dirt was completely knocked out, and Naruto dragged him with him over her shoulder to the Hokage, who was only about 2 minutes away from her. She went into the Hokage's office where he was sitting, trying to find her in his crystal ball, and knocked on the door. The Hokage, opening the door and seeing that it was Naruto, was like, "Why did you do that? Why would you take the scroll of seals? It is a very dangerous scroll. And why is Mizuki unconscious?" Naruto explains that Mizuki tried to trick her into stealing the scroll of seals, and that she knew better, so she took it but brought it back as soon as she got to their agreed meeting spot and knocking him out. Hiruzen, being very happy with Naruto and not knowing that she had copied 6 jutsu from the scroll, decided that, okay, and gave her an option to choose her Genin team. Naruto, being very happy with this, decided, you know what, I'm going to be on Sasuke's team. She didn't like Sasuke, at least not the way everyone else did, but she recognized that he was the best ninja of their year, and hoped that her combat abilities, shadow clones and stuff, and his talent and Sharingan, because he was an Uchiha, would make a great team. Naruto said that the third person could be whoever Hiruzen wanted it to be, and that she just wanted it to be a person that wouldn't judge her for being a girl if she were to show it. Hiruzen, knowing that she didn't like showing that she was a girl, and being the only person in the village that still knew that she was a girl, agreed and said, okay, I'll put Hinata Hyuga on your team. Naruto saying, okay, that sounds good to me, asked who their sensei would be, and Hiruzen laughed and said it was going to be Kakashi. Naruto smiled at this, knowing that Kakashi had already taught her the Shadow Clone Jutsu, and knew that he was going to be a half-decent teacher because of how she picked up the Shadow Clone Jutsu in a couple of hours. She figured, alright, I'm gonna head home, leave this with you, and you should probably lock him up. Naruto ended up going home when later on, a couple of minutes later, around like half an hour later, all of the Chunin and Jonin that went after Naruto came back saying they couldn't find him. Hiruzen said, oh, don't worry, Naruto came back and told him exactly what happened and explained that Mizuki was a traitor and he would be being put in jail. Naruto, being back at her house, took her jacket off and took her shirt off so that she was just in her bandage bindings. They weren't tight so they wouldn't crush her chest, but they were there so that people wouldn't notice that she was in fact a girl. she went over the jutsu that were in the 6 scrolls, and the first one that latched onto her mind was the Rasengan. She thought that it would be a cool idea to learn it and get a bunch of her clones to help her learn it, as it would make learning the Rasengan and using the Rasengan much easier. It being an offensive jutsu that had no nature transformation requirements, she knew that it was going to be a great asset to her jutsu arsenal. Naruto, hoping that Kakashi didn't mind all that much, just took a quick nap, just took a quick couple of hours to study the jutsu and hope that she could figure it out. Her realizing that she was going to need a couple of balloons and a couple of rubber balls so that she could learn it, she understood that she was not going to be able to get that stuff tonight. So she decided to just look over the general topics of all the other scrolls and take off her clothes, put on her pajamas, and go to bed. Naruto woke up the next morning frantic, as she only had 20 minutes to get to class, and immediately grabbed her clothes, put her bindings on and everything, grabbed a quick bowl of ramen, and bolted off. She didn't have any milk in the house, unlike in canon, because she knew that it was spoiled and she tossed it a couple days prior. Naruto getting to the school relatively quickly, only being 2 minutes before the bell rang, was happy and made her way to class. Naruto sat down right next to Sasuke, right before Ino and Sakura busted into the classroom. Naruto, knowing that they were going to start fighting, just ignored them and looked at Sasuke in question. Him being on her team meant that he was going to have to try to get along with her. And Naruto, knowing that Sasuke wasn't going to be like that because of his antisocial personality, decided that it was just going to be a better option to wait for their Jonin sensei and talk to Sasuke after it. Naruto, I keep switching back and forth between the names, I'm sorry. But Naruto, being kind of excited to be on a Genin team with 2 powerful bloodline users, was really excited to figure out who her sensei was. Iruka went through all the teams, going all the way the same in canon until he got to Team 7. He said Team 7 is going to be Naruto Uzumaki, Hinata Hyuga. This made Hinata very happy, and she grabbed a hold of her jacket and started playing with the strings on her jacket in joy. And Sasuke Uchiha. Naruto, not acting the way in canon, just nodded her head, and Hinata just thought that, okay, I'm going to be on Naruto and Sasuke's team. Hinata, being one of the only 2 people that actively enjoyed being around Naruto and his brash behavior, didn't know that he was in fact a girl. So Naruto, knowing that everything was going to be okay, figured, alright, and who is our sensei? Listening very intently. He knew that it was Kakashi, but because of the others didn't know that, she just acted like it was really interesting. Their Jonin sensei was Kakashi Hatake, And then was Team 8. Team 8 was going to be Kiba Inuzuka, Shino Aburame, sorry, I couldn't remember his name, and Sakura Haruno. Sakura immediately deflated in her chair, being upset that she couldn't be with Sasuke and that she had to deal with Dog Boy and Bug Boy, as she called them. Sakura, not wanting to deal with this, just put her head on her desk and ignored when their Jonin Sensei was called, who was Kurenai Hoshigaki. Naruto waiting for Kakashi to show up, not knowing that he was an extremely late person most of the time, as the time that she met him was on his own terms that didn't need to be timed. Naruto was frankly fairly upset that he was taking forever to get there and decided to pull another prank. Now, since Naruto still pulled pranks but was a lot more secretive about them, she decided to play the eraser trick and try to hold in her laughter. She put the eraser on the top of the door and waited for her sensei to get there. Almost an hour later, as she's having a conversation with Hinata and frankly trying to get Sasuke to join the conversation, but he wouldn't, Kakashi grabbed the door and was going to come in. Naruto, immediately noticing, looked over and watched as the eraser fell and hit Kakashi on the head. Naruto immediately held her laughter in and was able to stop it from cracking. Kakashi saying, "Alright, that was unexpected," just kind of looked around trying to figure out who did it, and he couldn't tell who it was, as all three of them were rather stone-faced. He said, "Alright, my first impression of you is that I hate you all." Now, all of them were like, "What? That's not fair, we didn't do anything." And Naruto, knowing that this was just a fake attitude from the times that she had met him before, she had not necessarily trained with him since learning the Shadow Clone Jutsu, but she had stopped, talked to him, and learned more about him, finding out that he went to the Memorial Stone every couple of days to assumably mourn someone that he had lost. Decided to just play along and say that's not fair, and Naruto was like, "Whatever, what is our training going to be?" And Kakashi, immediately noticing that it was Naruto and Sasuke and Hinata, was like, "Well, I guess I got put with a very good team." Kakashi said, "Alright, we're going to do introductions on the roof. Meet me up there," and then immediately shunshined out. Naruto, noticing, walked out the door and shunshined right after him before the others could notice that he had done it, and so that he could hide his ability to shunshin. He shunshined right up to the front doors right before the roof, and then walked out running as if she had ran the whole way there. Kakashi, being fairly impressed that Naruto was capable of getting there so quickly, simply decided to run and say that she would be a fairly strong taijutsu specialist if Kakashi and Hinata already weren't taijutsu specialists. After about 5 minutes, both Hinata and Sasuke got up, both stunned that Naruto was able to get up there before them, and they all sat down and were ready to do their introductions. Hinata suggesting that maybe Kakashi could go first. Kakashi said, well, my name is Kakashi Hatake. As for my likes, I don't think you deserve to know that. Dislikes, don't know if I want you to know that. Hobbies, reading, and goals for the future, don't know, I haven't thought about it. Sasuke, Naruto, and Hinata all knowing that this was just like a way to blow off the question, immediately just thought, okay, well, that was that. Can't do it. Kakashi immediately pointed at Hinata, saying, since you were the last one here, why don't you go first? Hinata nodded, being fairly shy, said, my name is Hinata Hyuga. My likes are flowers and training with my family and my little sister. My dislikes are rude people who look down on the weak. And my hobby is training and playing with my sister. As for goals, my goal is to lead the Hyuga clan and get rid of the caged bird seal. Naruto, noticing that knowing what the caged bird seal is, thought that Hinata's goals was very, very good and that it should be something else. Kakashi, noticing that she was done, then said, okay, you next, pointing at Sasuke. Sasuke gave the same speech as he did in canon. I am an Avenger. I dislike a lot of things, blah, blah, blah. And then he was like, well, that was grim, okay. And you, pointing at Naruto. Naruto took a deep breath and said, my name is Naruto Uzumaki, not realizing that she said Naruto instead of Naruto. I like ramen, training, and tricking people. I dislike arrogant people and snobs and perverts and rapists. My hobbies are trying different kinds of ramen and training. And my goal for the future is to become the Hokage. Saying it with a lot of emphasis, saying it more like, my dream is to be the greatest Hokage ever. Naruto, immediately seeing that they were looking at her with mouths agape, asked what the problem was. Kakashi spoke up and said, your name is Naruto, not Naruto. And she immediately realized her mistake. Since her hair was always in the back of her jacket and she always had a transformation jutsu on to look more like a guy, she never really had to worry about people realizing she was a girl. Naruto immediately thought of a way to come up with an excuse and simply said, sorry, I stuttered. My name is Naruto Uzumaki. I'm just kind of tired today. Kakashi, seeing right through this, just nodded and expected her and said, if he wants to keep his name a secret, then what am I to judge? Sasuke and Hinata both completely bought it, just thinking that he had stuttered or something. And that's when Kakashi told them that they were going to be doing the bell test and that they shouldn't eat breakfast at all or they would throw up. Naruto, immediately seeing right through this and knowing that it was a deception because he had done something similar with her training to be able to use the Shadow Clone Jutsu, simply nodded and said, "Okay, we'll meet you at 6 at Training Ground 7. Naruto was like, "Okay," and stopped talking to him and went and seen that Hinata was leaving, and so was Sasuke. Naruto called out to Sasuke saying, "Wait up, I need to talk to you." Sasuke said, "Okay, what is it?" And that's when Naruto revealed that she had been talking to the Hokage and knew what the bell test was. Hinata, overhearing, came back to listen as well, and that's when Naruto explained that the bell test is going to try to reinforce their teamwork. There's only going to be 2 bells, and those 2 bells are going to be the goal. If we get the bells, then only 2 of us can pass the test, and the other one will go back to the academy. Both of them looked at her in disbelief and shuddered a bit, being like that they didn't want to go back to the academy, until Naruto explained that this was all just a lie. The actual purpose of the test is to work together as a team and try to get the bells. And if you could get the bells, then your whole team passed. Kakashi, just thinking that it was going to be an easy fight, just went back to the Memorial Stone and started talking to himself, to Obito and Rin. Sasuke saying, "Okay, well, I will check out I will see you tomorrow at the training ground, and I will make sure that I eat breakfast because I hope that he is lying about this test." Naruto nodded and said, "Hinata, you should probably eat something as well." Hinata, just being very shy and blushing, said okay and walked off. Naruto, knowing that she had made a couple of mistakes from her introduction to now, just sighed and then used the transformation jutsu to turn into a moderately tall man with brown hair and black eyes, dressed in a typical gray kimono. He went to the supermarket under her disguise and bought a couple of things, them being balloons, water balloons, a couple of toy rubber balls, and some groceries and food and stuff for her kitchen, as well as some milk. The cashier, not knowing that it was Naruto, just rung up all the stuff without overcharging her. Naruto, noticing that it wasn't overcharged, knew that she had been being scammed for most of her life, and then took the groceries back to the apartment. And right before she walked into her door, she dropped the transformation jutsu, unlocking the door and going in, putting the groceries away and grabbing the training supplies. Using the scroll's instructions on how to make the Rasengan, and using around 105 shadow clones to try to speed up the process, Naruto ended up getting down the first part of her training in just a couple of hours, hoping that even if it was incomplete, that she could probably keep working at it. Because keep in mind, normal Naruto, who has worse chakra control than Naruto in this story, was able to perform the Rasengan in only a week's worth of training with like 105 shadow clones. That's 105 times faster. She could learn it all in an afternoon. Naruto, seeing that she was doing okay, and she had gotten most of her clones to pop a water balloon at least twice, dispelled them all with all the memories rushing back to her head. She popped the water balloon with basically no difficulty with only one hand, and that's when she made another round 100 shadow clones to try the second step. This step was a bit more difficult. She had to use 2 hands to kind of build in the chakra necessary to do it. And after around 4 or 5 hours of doing it constantly, she eventually learned to do it and rupture a ball with nothing but one hand. And she dispelled all her clones so that the memories all rushed back to her. She took the last 3 rubber balls and made them blow up with just one hand using the Rasengan. And that's when she started to notice that the last step was apparently the hardest. It was the containment step. She made around another 105 clones and gave them all a bag of balloons and told them to get to practicing as she needed to start cooking dinner. She did. She started cooking some vegetable ramen for herself and put a glass of milk out with it while all her clones were out in the woods training. No one noticed that there was 100 Narukos out there, and because they all had the hinge jutsu on, it all looked like they were Naruto, not Naruko. Naruko, after getting home and before she started cooking, dropped the transformation, took her hair out, took her jacket off, and just kind of looked around. She cooked and ate, and that's when she dispelled her clones. She sifted through the memories, finding out that she had figured out how to do it, and she created a perfect Rasengan with just one hand and said, this is going to be a great offensive jutsu. And she dispersed the chakra and then went to bed. Alright, I'm going to leave off this video here. It's probably going to be a while, so I will try to make a part 2 tomorrow or even maybe this afternoon, but I've got to take a shower and go eat my lunch because it's already like 4 o'clock. So I will see you all in the next video. If you enjoyed this, please like and subscribe. I am really happy with this one so far, so I will see you in a bit. Bye.